Hey everybody, welcome back to Noble Logistics. I'm Mike Vincent. He's Chris Jamroz, and you're like my hero, bro. I mean, what you did with Roadrunner is fantastic. And we're going to get into all that stuff and what's new there. But executive chairman and CEO, which means everything's your fault.
I'll take it. I'll
At
take it,
Roadrunner,
Michael. Bring it
but
on.
all the success too, right? I mean, that's the thing that people don't understand. Hey, I want that job. Okay, that's cool. The success is yours, but also the failure and all the pressure, right?
Indeed, indeed, and it's been
Indeed,
quite a ride so far.
it has. You guys have done amazing. I think you guys got the best shirts, the best swag as far as the logos, etc. They're
It
fantastic.
comes with the wounds, the battlefield wounds, Michael.
Is that right? So I can't buy one. I got to buy it with blood. Is that right?
Uh, well, for you, we're going to make an exception. But if you're part of the family, and here you need to have the wounds and scars to prove it to earn
Well,
one of these.
I've got wounds and scars. They may not be from Roadrunner, but from 36 years in logistics, I got plenty of wounds and
I
scars.
do
I
believe it.
st- I still wake up with what we used to call a Roadway Express when I started freight mares instead of nightmares. We called them freight mares. We'd wake up right
Makes
working
sense.
on that dock. Turn the drag line back on. Get the carts moving. Oh man, yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy. So what's new in the world of Roadrunner, my friend?
Uh, well, listen, we got a lot of things going. Q1 was a very interesting quarter for the entire LTL industry.
Yeah,
First, the weather completely decimated the southern states, right? Most of the industry's facilities in the south, so about a quarter. If you think about a national LTL carrier, it doesn't matter what size, but a national one, not a regional, but national.
right,
These
right,
guys, including ourselves, we would have had about a quarter of our facilities shut down due to winter storms and snowstorms in the month of January for about 13 work days, and then in February for about 10 days, which, when you start getting snow in Memphis and Houston, I mean, those places just completely shut down. And we've had them everywhere from Charlotte, Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, Memphis, Nashville, crazy
dude. It
places to
was it
get
was
snow.
snowing in New Orleans.
Yeah, it was crazy. So, that's just it is. So that didn't help. And I think the industry really wanted to have a great January, to be honest, because there was a lot of
Yeah,
shippers pulling forward the inventories replenishment. So the
right,
industry
right.
really wanted to do well. And it didn't. Most of the LTL public comms came with earnings warnings and softness, etc. It's just there's not much they could have done. We actually did extremely well, but not as good as we had hoped to be doing. So everybody was impacted in one shift. And then March, which is, I always say that even a monkey would do a record March, and you would know that better than anyone, Michael. That
Right.
March is a freebie. You just
Wait,
you
wait.
just
Did you
wake
just
up
call
if
me a
you.
monkey? Did you just call me a monkey, dude?
Michael, I would never.
Just
I don't want to. I wouldn't insult an animal like that. But but even anybody, a drunken sailor could deliver a great march as long as you stay alive. Post first
right.
60 days of the year, you get that bonus, that early Christmas that comes to the freight industry when the tons of inventory and freight washes up ashore, and there's just everybody runs busy. It's a long month, a lot of working days. This is where
Mm-hmm.
most rate increases take hold. Tons of freight to be things, etc. Well, this year, crickets. There was
Yeah, it didn't happen.
nothing. It did not happen. There was no peak. There was no freebies. There was no bonus. There was nothing. There was nothing. And that obviously kind of set the stage for April, which was unusually strong, but not enough to compensate for a weaker March. And now we effectively and officially in a freight vacuum. There's the port of LA Long Beach announced 25% drop in inbound containers. The inventory pull forwards kind of stopped. Restocking paused. We effectively operate in a vacuum. And what's absolutely shocking and quite troubling, Michael, is that I monitor, everybody monitors those, cost, DAT indices, and but to them, to me, it's kind of a little bit of a lagging indicator. It's like anybody can
Oh
look it
yeah.
up, a load
No,
board.
it
It's not going to
certainly
tell you
is. Yeah.
much. So what I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward is the forward looking indicators. And to us, there's many. There's the consumer confidence, the project management institute, the University of Michigan. You have all of these things. They're very, very good, and obviously none of them are painting a particularly great picture. But what I do
No.
look at this in particular is the blank sailings. So the canceled cargo voyages out of China on the Trans-Pacific East route. And I'm not sure if you know that, but in a single month of March, there were more canceled shipments and more blank sailings than in 3 months of COVID combined.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
And
makes
that
sense. Yeah.
means this is trouble. So what's happened at Roadrunner? Like you asked me what's new? We've opened 278 new lanes in the first quarter. We've broadened our scope of services. We're ready to rock and roll. We're doing okay. We're doing well. I'm not doing as well as I had hoped because the Roadrunner is really kind of operationally, it's really strong. It's just roaring and ready to
Yeah.
pounce. And it's just we seriously are lacking freight in a pipeline to really go after it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what. But you're positioned perfectly to come out of this super strong, and that's really the guidance that you try and provide in these particular times, right? Is how do we keep ourselves in that place where we can take advantage when it does come roaring back? Because it will. It'll
Oh
be
yeah,
different though. It feels it's going to be different though because our warehousing now. I've talked to a bunch of people. I was talking to Nolan Transportation Group and a bunch of others,
yeah,
and like warehousing is stocked, right? The difference this time is you had to pull forward, but like you said, consumer confidence index and stuff like it's in the toilet, right? I think I saw Henry Byers say that it was depressed, with KPM. No, that's it's in the toilet, dude. It's
it's
absolutely
bad. It's
awful,
really bad. I
and
mean,
and so
all these
there's
all these things is just. But think about it. You have a persistent interest rates that are at much elevated levels, and
right,
everybody counted on cutting interest rates rather meaningfully this year. And
right,
it's not the fact that they're not cutting, but even. Sometimes when you say even by not making a decision, you're making a decision. It's exactly like that because effectively you're introducing a tightening policy at the time that you should really be relaxing. I do understand why Fed is conflicted and is weighing those carefully, but it's really late to the game. I think those interest rates are too high. I think they've been hit too high for too long. I think they're going to hurt the consumer quite a bit. They definitely hurting industrial investments. They hurting capital expenditures. They hurting our investment policy because we're waiting. We should like
yeah,
who wants to pay these? Every facility that we finance our purchasing our investments is based off the underlying SOFR rate. So why would we
yeah.
do it now? So everybody's sort of holding back. That's not helping. That's not helping.
It's really not, but it's interesting though from the perspective of the actual freight, right? So the investment side of it, makes perfect sense, and that can come roaring back, right? Because there will be a release of freight, but the tidal wave or bullwhip effect, it doesn't appear at this particular moment in time, and the length of where we're at with this slowdown and canceling of sailings will determine this, right? But
Mm.
the shorter it is, obviously, or in some time frame, we're not going to see that huge bullwhip effect
I
because
don't
the
think so.
because you don't have the consumers buying the hell out of everything while there's nothing coming in. Nobody's buying anything, and there's nothing coming in, so it's a pause on both ends, right? When before you had this
Absolutely right.
huge demand and nothing coming in, so that bullwhip went bang. That scenario is not
That's
playing out right
exactly it, Michael. That's exactly it. COVID was an emotional response. People wanted to buy. People had funds to buy. They had the confidence to buy. They needed to buy stuff, and there was nothing on the shelves. There was nothing on the ships for those things. So when the gates opened, the floodgates came back roaring, as you said. Here is the stuff is here. It's the inventories are not completely depleted. A lot of folks have pulled forward. Some of them paused. They have probably next, I don't know, 2 3 weeks of inventory left. But they not really rushing with the orders. Like the China's order book is kind of half empty. And the consumer is not really, stocking, supermarkets, grocery department stores for more goods to purchase. So this is a really troubling picture that we're dealing with right now, Michael.
Yeah, it really is. I think we'll find out. I think these locking themselves in for long talks in Switzerland is making everybody nervous right now. You can see it in the Dow. People are like, okay. It's like they're sitting ahead of a jobs report or something where everything starts to tail
Yeah.
off a little bit, right? This will be a huge time frame right here. What happens, right, and how it's spun in the media will have a big impact. I think.
Absolutely right. And we haven't dealt with anything like that before.
Mm-mm.
So it's every time is different, right? Every time it's something else. There's a different catalyst that precipitates the cycle change, and then this, or you know this is the funny part. Entering 2025, we were all a little gloomy and whiny because we were entering a third year of freight recession. Now
Yeah.
that January looks like a peak of the honeymoon. You want to
Oh,
go back to the good old days of early January when you actually thought these things are going to get better this year. And it's very interesting how things shift. I mean, the trade policy is so important, so critical. It can completely ripple the global supply chain as it has. So kind
yep.
of a little bit of a lack of transparency in uncertainty, all the risks, and the timing impact. Those things,
Yeah.
every month that goes by with more of canceled voyages and blank sailings, it's kind of compounding the trouble. It's like a tsunami, quietly building up over the Pacific that's going to kind of wipe us out here. And it's the people and listen, and I'm fully sympathetic. Roadrunner is an LTL carrier. You know that perfectly well. LTL carriers are not really exposed to those things, right? We are domestic kind of ship carriers. We are with things we have it good. So I'm not, I am concerned, but think about obviously the freight forwarders, truckload brokerages. You look at all the people who deal with ocean container, the port operator, the intermodal, the drayage companies. I mean, this
Yeah.
is this is
Well,
an issue.
it impacts LTL, but it's much less of a tactical impact as it is a long term strategic impact, right?
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely. It would be
the longer
impossible
this
not to.
goes, it
Yeah,
will hit you, right? I mean,
yeah.
there's a definite correlation between truckload and LTL. You need to understand both of those, right?
You
Truck
do.
capacity dries up and demand is out through the roof, and you start having truckload shippers start to break things out into volume spot market, which could tank an LTL carrier if they don't see that coming, because you need to
Yeah,
increase that
but
if you're
that's
not
going to
pricing
take.
it correctly.
Yeah, but it's
It,
going to take a while, right? Because
it
LTL
takes a
is
while.
always
That's
the
what I'm
is
saying.
always the price attractiveness, right? So you're kind of dealing with the
Yes.
more complexity, a little bit less convenience, but you do get the most attractive price point. So whether that's when in a place of absolute prosperity, when the capacity is tight and prices go up, you're looking for the lowest possible price points, not to pay an arm and a leg for transport.
Right.
Conversely, when you're going down, you obviously, that goes with the economy. You want to save money, so you're looking for the lowest possible price point. LTL, welcome back. So we are really on the winning swing. This is a true niche, but it would be really rather illogical and irresponsible to imagine that if something really catastrophic happens, there would be absolutely zero impact. There will be a spillover effect on the LTL carriers, and I
Sure.
think
Sure.
LTL carriers as a niche is in very good shape. But this is America. We don't think just about ourselves. You think about the country, you think about the economy, do you think about how it impacts all of us here, and that's what's really concerns me the most.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right because the long term impacts of this could be enormous if there aren't solutions. And I think, I mean, we can get into trade strategy, et cetera, and wax prophetic about that all day long. But the announcement that the deal with the UK, and then they said there's dozens more in the hopper ready to come out. I believe that those dozens are signed. A lot of those are inked, but you have to have China done. But China can't be done until the others are done. So there's this political posturing, right? China wants to be one of the first ones to get this done because they have to save face as far as, and there's all kinds of different power moves and political moves is why that happens. But the United States, the power or the pocket aces is having India, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam, and all those already signed, and going to China and go, you got to play ball now, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that they said there's dozens in the hopper, and by the way, we're going to Switzerland and we're going to lock ourselves in a room and work this out, to me indicates we could see a really quick end to this over the next 2-3 months,
We could. I mean, listen, uh, I
or
don't
not. I
like
mean,
I
I'm
don't
totally
like
guessing, but
yeah, I don't like what's going on any more than the next person, right? It's fake.
yeah,
But I
right,
have to do
right,
two things. Nobody's
yeah,
ever before has been courageous and had the balls to step up to China, right? So that's
yeah,
number one.
yeah,
It's that that
yeah.
country has really been taking advantage of us
Well,
and the rest of
they've
the
been
world
fighting a
for
war. They've been fighting a war that we've been ignoring for 50 years.
yeah, they just so ahead of us on this. We are late to the game, and there's
Way
no
late.
absolute winning, dude. But there is a better spot for us to be at than we were even last year. So there is this period of adjustment, which is as painful as we getting, and it's very dangerous. But hey, listen, I'm all for it. Let's get the best deal. And this is interesting. In America, this is the country of deal making. We love making deals. The beauty of the American deal making is there are mostly win-wins. There's very, very few kind of applauded situations where somebody emerges as a win and somebody's a loser. Good deal making is about making win-win situations, and that's what America is all
Yeah,
about. Now you go over to China, completely different picture. First, you said it is about face saving. This is culturally so important to them. So it is not an easy nut to crack.
right. And that exactly. And that's where the timing of announcements of these happen, right?
Hmm.
I think it's 100% true that countries jumped on and said, hey, let's do a deal, let's do a deal, let's do a deal, let's do a deal. But the administration knows dealing with China, you can't have that happen because the more that happens, the worse China looks. But at the same time, you have to have that to be able to show those in China behind the scenes that, hey, I got you. Right
Yeah.
now, it's negotiating how does this come out to save face. Right.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, and I
There's
agree with you
zero,
100%.
zero, there's zero benefit in shaming and
Zero.
embarrassing that regime because that
No,
regime cannot, they have 1 billion people they managing and nothing that would resemble a democracy, right? So this is
right.
kind of this needs to be a very tightly managed game. So there needs to be an off ramp, and an off ramp is a sort of a win-win from an American standpoint that looks like an absolute win for China in the domestic policy
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah.
So I
And
don't
I
know
think
how you make
signals are
that
there.
happen.
I don't either, but I think signals are there, and it'll be interesting to study all of this over the years. And I think we'll glean a lot of information on international politics and trade as we look back on this period and see what actually went down as we are able to dissect it, right? Because even Trump saying, "Hey, I consider going down to 80%." In China, that plays like, "Look, the West is caving."
Mhm.
They're caving, but everybody knows that it's not going to be an 80% tariff on China when we get this done.
Yeah, because that's a trade embargo, and
You know what I mean?
you don't want
So
to do embargoes.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So giving that up to them pre going into these trade talks doesn't give away really anything. because everybody knows it's not. We're not going to negotiate 80% tariffs on China, and it throws them a bone going into this. Going, yeah, look, the West is ready to cave. Let's go in there and get this deal done because they're caving to us right now.
Yeah.
So I think it sets them up for that saving faith. Anyways, it's really really interesting what is going on here, and it's interesting that you guys, from what I see in the exterior, have that mindset, or at least you do in your leadership, which I agree with 100%, is setting yourself up to take advantage of, if you want to say it that, it sounds like you're evil or not. It's not. You're setting up your company for success as we come out of this, because it will change. And having that mentality for, the cycles are happening. How you react in the trough is how you're going to perform at the peak, and how you act in the peak is how you're going to perform in the trough. And it seems like you've got that kind of hedging going on to always be going up and to the right. But like you said, maybe not as fast as you want to right now, but you're not willing to just start cutting costs and everything to keep that margin as high as possible when you know the investment needs to be made to take advantage on the other side.
Yeah, that's you used the you said exactly what I wanted to say. You used the nomenclature I would use, so I need to get creative now. But because
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
the peak to trough is my favorite combo of words, so I need to get creative. But you're absolutely right. So number one, don't want to speak about the broader supply chain. Most, not that I'm not knowledgeable, but let's stick to my own knitting. You cannot
Yeah.
cut your way to profitability as an LTL carrier. That's a fool's errand. That's not going to play out. Look at the smartest guys, I think. Look at the Old Dominions, the XPOs. These guys are still building out. We building out. Like we are investing. It's kind of like funny because most questions I get when I get on a industry interviews is just like, Chris, so why are you opening the new markets? Why are you introducing the algorithmic loading of trailers when you're really operating at 25% underutilization of capacity? Well, it's doing because it's a lot easier to learn new things. It's a lot easier to implement enterprise-wide initiatives and investments when you are not operating at the peak, right? And then it's, I've always had, God, good Lord's given me a few gifts. One of them is always spot a cliff coming up, and that sort
Mm.
of has always kind of helps me. Now I can never predict when good times start rolling, but I can sense the bad ones around the corner, and at this point there are smart people. Warren Buffett is obviously the flagpole of this, a flag bearer of this, run in when people are running away, right? Just lean in. And it is, if you create an environment within infrastructure, right? And we create an infrastructure of transportation in the United States, do you really believe that there will be no need for infrastructure, right? Do you believe that in the mid to
Yeah.
longer term
Yeah.
we will consume less goods, that we will buy less, that suddenly your wife, my wife, was going to stop buying or buy less of Amazon packages or any
Oh
sort of
man,
directive?
from your
Do you
lips to
really
God's
believe
ears, my friend.
that's it? Yeah. And so it's just, so the point is, so you should be agnostic to where you find yourself in the cycle. You should be smart. The silliest decisions or the most irresponsible decisions is when you feel that this time is going to be different. You're at the peak. This time will not end up in tears. You're invincible. You start believing you have this unimpeachable view of self-intellect, and then you start making
Yeah.
capital decisions that have very consequential impact to you in the trough, right? So to me, yes, I argue, and that we are leaning in hard. We're making a lot of investments, tons of stuff. This is not for this part, but it's like technology, infrastructure, people, process. It's just re-rolling out things that you would not believe. And the one question you'd have is like, Chris, why are you doing this right now? And my answer would be, it doesn't matter when I do it. It's probably a lot better to do it now and be ready rather than get yourself caught by surprise when the pendulum swings. And you know that extremely well. When it does, it goes fast. It goes
It goes
fast to the
fast. You
negative.
can't
It
catch up
goes
to it. You got to
fast.
be
You
ready already.
can't. You
Yeah.
can't do that. And when you're at the trough, it's tough to see past the doom and gloom. But you said it. It's a cyclical industry. The only thing for sure It's going to go back up and it's going to go back down.
And it's going to go back down. It's absolutely true. And you know, beyond the investment side of it, when you, or not beyond it, but just to explode it a little bit or expand it a little bit on that investment side is people and training and safety and efficiencies, et cetera. You can't. It's very difficult to improve your performance when when you're at peak season, right? You have to have that perfected before you get to peak season, right? You have to be
Yeah.
trained, right, and ready for that. Once it's peak season, you can't go, oh, okay, let's implement all these efficiencies. You
Yeah. Do you
can't
remember
do it.
how many carriers talked to the shippers in 2021 saying, "Hey, we're just leading an implementation of an algorithmic trailer that's going to improve our efficiency and lower your cost."
Yeah.
No, you can't do
No,
that. You don't do
you can't
that.
do it. No, you're
Can't do it.
scrambling to just handle what you got moving on. It's been fantastic, my friend. Our time blows by way too fast. We'll have to do this.
Way
This is
too
our second
fast.
time. We'll have to do this again. We'll do this again after we hear what goes down in Switzerland.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Always fun.
Right?
Super. Thanks for having me, Michael. It was always great to see you.
Absolutely. Peace and love, everybody. We'll catch you next time on Noble. Peace.